Chapter 2. It was right to sound some effect. The story mode does chronicle Limp Bizkid's on tour. In fact, it talks about a very specific real-life tour, the anger management tour they did with Papa Roach and Eminem. I remember the story. Fred Durst canceled half the show because his throat hurt. DJ Lenthal backed Everlast in that interview on MTV. Eminem got really pissed and did a diss on one of his albums. Jesus Christ, which album was it? It was one of the two with D12. Damn it all. Can't remember. Doesn't matter. I don't like Eminem that much anyway. There's more to the story, but it really doesn't matter. Point is, Limp Bizkid and Eminem don't like each other. And honestly, I'm fine with that. So it starts off backstage. The graphics look decent for a GameCube game in 2001. The first thing that comes to my mind was Enter the Matrix. It's like that game, except the human models aren't chunky. They're actually kind of smooth. Fred Durst's hat is hovering above his head, although it sort of looks pasted onto his forehead. The first shot of the story is him in the back, wearing his jersey and his red hat and pretty much everything you would expect. He's tying his shoes while standing on the stool. You can vaguely hear rolling playing in the background. Loving the soundtrack so far. Fred Durst yells, "Yo, Shaddy!" to the right side of the room. Kind of surprised he used Marshall's nickname instead of his real name. They're backstage, so you'd think it would be more shoot style, or maybe you're not supposed to suspend your disbelief in this game. It is a Limp Bizkit game. There's gonna be a bunch of sort of ironic humor. Fred doesn't wait for a response. He walked to the right, my right, and opened a big, cold gray door. The room beyond it was dark and lonely. Something about that room just didn't feel right. I mean, if it was like a closet, that would be fine, but it looked like another locker room. You could barely make out someone lying on the floor. There was even fog in it. If this was supposed to be one of Fred's jokes, I don't get it. Maybe he's secretly a fan of old monster movies. That would make me happy. Fred then says he must be heading on stage. At this point, the camera stopped following Fred. He turned back, walked off screen, and to the stage. The camera stayed in place and focused on the room. The body lying on the floor woke up, moving barely, breathing a very cold breath, and then fell down again. The motion froze, and then a loading screen came up. The loading screen was Borland and Jerry Harton having a stare down. This was starting to confuse me. Why wouldn't the cover of the game have Eminem and Papa Roach too? It had Snoop Dogg, who I hadn't even seen yet, but didn't feature any of the main story characters. And believe you me, these two personalities would make the game sell. I'm all for promoting Limp Bizkit and not Eminem, but there is a point where I wonder if some companies know that they're trying to make money. The other half the time, I wonder if some companies know that money isn't everything, that a long-term investment is ideal, but whatever, that's unrelated. The loading screen ends, and you get to choose your character. There was Fred Durst, Wes Borland, DJ Enthel, and John Utter, and Sam Rivers. And there was one more figure, but it was a black shallot with a large question mark. The label said Boiler. I figured you unlocked the guy through Boiler mode. My best guess was that it was either Snoop Dogg or Mike Smith, the guy who replaced Wes Borland, and for results may vary. As much as I'm a fan of everyone on there, except for Lethal, he pisses me off sometimes, I choose Wes Borland. I liked him the best. He's like if you combined Buckethead and Marilyn Manson and made him more human. You get on stage with a perfect yet extremely strange way to open a Limp Bizkid game. Eminem and Fred Durst start doing a rendition of N2 Gender Now, with Eminem doing Method Man's line. It was surreal, man. Method Man and Eminem are not nearly the same, for lack of better expression. Could you imagine fake white boy doing the line of chill or old black man? That would be like if Dave Mustaine was part of Metallica. Completely different styles. But they did it, and played as West Borland. And playing as West Borland, I had absolutely nothing to do. Remind me to read the instruction booklets next time. So I just watched two computers generate rappers do a song that I'm not even a huge fan of, while DJ Lethal did the turntables. Me, Sam Rivers, and Joe Otto just kind of relaxed in the background. Was it boring because of the surreal atmosphere? How's Eminem doing Method Man's lines? How did I know that this existed? Does it exist? What kind of stupid question is that? A little bit before the 2-minute mark, Eminem pulled out two katanas out of a douche-wreath chef he apparently had on his back the whole time. Remind me to watch for details. I was still on the edge like I'd been since I was at GameStop, so I got scared to hell at first. I actually considered hiding behind the couch. Oy vey. Then I remembered this was part of the N2 Gather Now music video. You know, the one with the Neptune beat? Eminem started shredding falling pizzas out of the sky, and I started to realize this was the gameplay element. It was a timing mini game, so now I was really pissed that West Borland had nothing to do. It wasn't because the song didn't have a guitar, it was because the game expects people to always play as Durst or Eminem. But if that's true, why didn't the game let you choose Eminem as a character? Eminem kept dancing to the right of the screen, and he got dangerously close to some of the band members. Durst ducked, Otto blocked with his drumsticks, but Lethal wasn't so lucky. Eminem missed him, but his arm did get cut open real bad, and the turntables part of the song suddenly cut out. Strange. That would be a lot of in-house recording if they were gonna program that with every instrument. I'm having a hard time believing there was this much production put into the game, and how the hell did they get Eminem to agree to do this anyway? Or maybe they didn't. And that's why nobody's heard of this game. Yet, yeah, that makes sense. They used his image without his permission. They got sued up the ass. Sounds stupid, but it's my best guess. Well, Slim Shady got too close to West. A QuickTime event showed up. Yeah, that's right. A QuickTime event in a 2001 game. It told me to press X to save. In a flash, I pressed X, barely making it. If it wasn't for how odd this game was, I wouldn't have been on my toes so much. West Borland made two wooden rabbits appear in front of the Catens. From thin air, yes. It's from the Break Stuff music video, sort of. The Catens bounced back when they hit the rabbits, and Eminem was momentarily stunned. Eminem got really pissed at this, and attempted to strike again, but I had the instinct to press X and duck under the cantus. I then ran to the front edge of the stage. West looked like he was pissed at Eminem. His eyes were red and they were about to fight, but the camera zoomed out slowly, and by out I mean far out. It got a really nice angle of the entire area from the sky. at about a 20-degree angle. I was still in the process of realizing how awesome the graphics were for 2001 GameCube. Then I heard the noise. At first, it sounded like a super fast building of a million molecules bugs about to burst through the television set. My mind slowly transformed what I was hearing into what it actually was. Helicopters. Massive helicopters that looked like they could actually kill Godzilla. And not the wussified American version either. They were giant and black. The windows looked like they were full of stars. They invaded the Coliseum that our two hip-hop stars were playing in. Cursed open roofed areas. The entire audience screamed in panic as the helicopters opened fire. Tons of the audiences was getting shot. Blood was going everywhere, and you could see heads rolling like bowling balls in 25 lanes. I had no idea what was going on, but my adrenaline pumped up beyond imagination. Eminem dashed with his katanas, jumped up like Bruce Lee with a rocket up his ass, and slashed one of the helicopter engines, causing a massive explosion. I didn't see him land. Fred Durst, Lethal, and the rest of Limp Bizkid, aside from I, followed suit. I was watching for a few moments until I realized I was still in control of West Borland. I also realized the camera was now from a first-person view of Wes. I dashed towards the helicopter, but I missed the landing skids. Everybody else seemed to be able to grab them. I must have just been too late. I, or West Borland, whichever, fell down 20 feet and landed on a pile of bodies. There was a ton of fire rising from the Coliseum, like the end of a Die Hard movie or something. Seemed like there was one helicopter left, and the band was still trying to defeat it. No Eminem to be seen yet. The last helicopter, the final boss of the stage, you could say, was huge. 3 times the size of the other ones, and appeared to have a goddamn cannon on its bottom. It shot a ball at DJ Lethal and crushed his bones. Blood started coming out of his teeth. Not the gum, the teeth. You don't want to know how disgusting that was. That's when John Otto lifted Fred Durst straight in the air, and Fred Durst flew like there was no gravity. Fred Durst grabbed the landing skids, but before I could see what he did to the helicopter, I looked to West's side as I felt something grab my arm. Let me rewrite that. I looked to West's side, because something had grabbed my arm. It's the weirdest thing. I knew it was in the video game, but something had latched onto my arm in real life. I felt it. Later when was in bed and realized what exactly I felt. I screamed so hard the neighbor's dogs could hear it. I saw yet another canon character in the Limp Bizkid fandom, would you say? Somebody related to the Bizkid. Christian Aguilera, of all people in the world, was barely holding my West arm. I looked at her face, expecting to see that kind of overdone makeup face that she always had. Instead, her eyes were melted. Worse, the goop was filling in her sockets. The mouth was an empty abyss, no teeth or gums or anything. You could see the cheekbones snapped in half earlier, and they bulged out of her face. Her body was a wrecked, anorexic mess. You could see her entire skeleton through this shell of the skin. She screamed so loud I had to turn the volume down on the TV to 5. And this is a TV that plays average volume at 30. In a shriek I could only call that of an innocent demon burning in hell, she screamed, "Boil me!" Help me, Wes. Spoil me. Kill me. I want to die. The screen dissolved to red, and there was a giant shriek so high-pitched the bat could hear it from 10 miles away. Yet somehow I could hear it too, and I was going deaf. It felt like I was getting the sharpest pin in the world injected into my brain. I muted the television. What it did was make the experience no less painful. No, it actually made it worse. It turned it into just as loud as the scream of low-tone static from the television, and the red screen started to bubble. The screen was different, at least the last one. While it might have been rougher, was innocent. This one, while smoother, was the voice of the devil in the form of Big Brother. It was a large, bumbling voice of pure torture. I got up, barely reached the TV and the screen, and turned off the screen. Now I could hear Christian Angela again, only this time she wasn't screaming. She was being strangled. The red was gone from the TV, so obviously I'm not into that kind of territory yet. I felt sad. I didn't want to do what must be done, but I did. I switched the power off of the GameCube, and my heart shattered into a million pieces as I did. I didn't even care for Christina, but I can tell you it's hard to kill somebody who is suffering. I don't even know for sure I killed her, but something was telling me that was exactly what I was doing. Now there were no voices, but the GameCube started shaking and rumbling on my desk. I was a lot more smothered by this, but that's only relative. I was freaking out of my mind. I crouched down, stumbling and stuttering, and plugged the GameCube. I sat down on the couch and thought to myself what must have been 2 hours. It's in still a state of perilous, while my heart drummed to the arm of a million Spartans. The idea raced around in my head, so many that I could not begin to list them. I got up again. I ejected the disc, grabbed the case for the game, and opened it. I was scared that anything would change in an instant. I took the disc out of the GameCube, tried to grab it by the edges, but slipped out of my hand. That's because it cut the skin of my finger when I did so. It was bleeding a very bright and unusual red. I looked at the disc, and I realized the art was Fred Durst staring back at me in that one ice blue shot from the My Way video. I bent down, grabbed the disc with my finger barely, and then flipped it onto my palm. I then dropped it into the case, pressed it against the holder, and it was in. I had lost that much blood. It really didn't hurt, honestly. It was just surprising. Nah, it hurt. It burned a little, actually. I went back to the couch, sat down, and finished that Mountain Dew. I looked up to the ceiling and said to myself, we've got two options here. Either the ESRB was just jerking off when they raided this game, or I'm in the middle of a creepypasta. I kept thinking to myself, all the signs. This thing must be haunted. I tried to push the thought out of my head, but I kept thinking about them. They wouldn't stop. I've read those stories before, but they're just stories, right? Fuck it. Let's just say it's a creepypasta situation, or the game is haunted, or whatever. The biggest mistake those fucktards made in those stories is continuing. I'm gonna get some rest, then wake up tomorrow, trade it in, and get another game. Maybe I'll finally get off my ass and play God of War.